Hey folks, having a good evening, having a good day, I hope. Welcome to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPP, LP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight, on our show, we have a very important interview with an anonymous member of the LeBaron family. If you don't know, the LeBaron family suffered a horrible tragedy in Mexico. There was an attack, a massacre that occurred on their family, and they lost children, women, including infant children, that were massacred in a hail of bullets, in a horrid fire, and in a state of violence which is constant and ongoing in Mexico, and which has yet to be resolved, leaving open many wounds, questions, calls for justice, not just from the LeBaron family, but from people on both sides of the border asking questions about the investigation into this case, about organized crime in Mexico, about whether the cartel should be classified as terrorist organizations. Those questions need answers. Tonight, I will interview one of the family members of the LeBaron family to tell us what they're going through, how this horrible tragedy, only one of the latest in the string of deaths in the LeBaron family. How this latest tragedy has changed the LeBarons, the Millers, the Johnsons, the Langfords, perhaps forever. And especially their lives in Mexico, their communities in Mexico. It remains to be seen whether they are willing to stay. Many have already left, and without certainty that they will ever return. Tonight we will talk about how that impacts the LeBaron family, how this is impacting the communities in which they lived, which they created, which they grew, like the town named after them, LeBaron, and others. How this senseless crime is reverberating throughout Mexico and the United States. All of that we will cover tonight on A Mexican Crossing Lines. I want to thank our audience, our listeners, our social media viewers, all of you out there that send me topic ideas, questions, comments, cards. I thank you profoundly for checking in with us, for following us, and for supporting the work of independent, non-commercial media. If you like the work you hear from 88.1 FM, consider becoming a sponsor, consider becoming a donor. It's tax deductible, and it's great for journalism, for independent media, and for our communities. Duke, how can folks follow us and support our work?
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight on Facebook. We do YouTube lives also. And I like to stagger in between Facebook and YouTube because there's two different audiences. You know, those of you on Facebook that stand Facebook, but there's also a YouTube audience. We'll always do announcements on our page on Facebook that we're going to go live on YouTube or on Facebook, and that way you can catch our show. Thank you all the people who have contributed to our organization. As Cindy said, we're a nonprofit, non-commercial radio station in Fargo-Moorhead. We've been doing these live chats, for about a year now. It's a new medium for us, and we are able to reach a larger audience across the nation and in other countries. And we also broadcast a lot of our shows, not all of our shows, but a lot of our shows. We have to edit them for broadcast on a local radio station. But if you're driving around Fargo-Moorhead right now listening to 88.1 KPPP LP FM radio, you want to get a hold of us, you can call this number. It's a call-in line. You can just leave a message. It's 701-566-0917. Again, it's 701-566-0917. Also, anyone can call that number. You don't have to be driving around Fargo-Moorhead to do it. But it's a good way to give a message to us. If that's not your thing, you don't want to leave a message, you can do an email, cindy@kppfm.com, or me, Duke, at kppfm.com. We also have a Twitter account. It's at media_PPP. And on Facebook, it's 88.1 FM, Fargo-Moorhead, the People's Press Project of Mexi-Can. And also, if you go to our website, kppfm.com, and if you'd like to make a donation, go to the donate tab, and it'll be tax-deductible donation to our nonprofit that runs this radio station. We're a nonprofit organization, and we have a 501c3, so we're fully tax-deductible, and your contribution would help us greatly. Also, we have underwriting opportunities. The FCC allows us to do what they call underwriting, a lot like what PBS does. It's a way to endorse an organization. You make a tax-deductible contribution to the organization, and we run a underwriting spot for you that highlights your business, what you sell, how long you've been around, different things like that. And I'd like to thank our most recent underwriting, Make My Life Great Again, PalomaForTrump.com. Paloma, the number 4, Trump.com. That's PalomaForTrump.com. If you'd like to do some underwriting, go to our website at kppfm.com and look at the underwriting tab, and you'll see a variety of rates and those sorts of things. And that's, we'll do some on the lives, but it's really strictly for our radio listening audience, because it's a great way to reach people in the community. So if your item or your whatever, like websites are great because anyone can go to a website, and so they go to a website and see what you're doing. So we really thank anyone who would like to support us that way, or just a traditional donation. Go to kppfm.com/donate. Thank you all for all the information you send too. It's not, and the dedication of our supporters, people who come back, people who write us messages, people who send us information. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. And you're going to enjoy the show tonight because this is information no one else has. This is an exclusive interview. And it was just done today, and this news has died down in the major media because it's just, they move on to something else. But this is a very important issue. We need to continue talking about it, and we'll talk about it tonight.
It's very sad what you just said.
Yeah.
That it's died down in the media. Something as horrific as this.
I know.
People forget about it. And
it's only been like a couple weeks.
I know.
And it just went away after one news day. It was in the news, and the families were affected here in North Dakota. So our local news did some media on it, but then they stopped. And it's very important that we put our thumb on the pulse of the story, because it is affecting a lot of people. It's affecting people's, imagery about Mexico, the whole country. And there's all sorts of good information out there, but there's all sorts of misinformation. But it's I don't want to see Mexicans getting blamed. I don't want this to turn into hating Mexicans. This is something that hasn't been investigated fully. We don't even know the whole story, but we have a whole bunch of family members who are terrified.
And remember, these are Americans and Mexicans.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
They're both.
Yeah.
They've been lived in Mexico, but they're American citizens. They speak English.
Yeah.
They got jobs over here and family over here too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like a lot of us.
Exactly.
Who are Mexican American. So this is an issue, I think, that people need to kind of wrap their heads around in a different way. I think there is a tendency, especially when we're talking about something in another country, like in this case Mexico, our neighbors, to be like, they screwed up.
Yeah, it's their problem.
And they should fix it or whatever. Like, and just take this us versus them posture when, in fact, we are neighbors.
Yeah.
And many of us are dual citizens, and many of us are, have family on both sides of the border and have fond memories and being raised. I mean, this is an issue that, whether or not we like it, it affects both our countries.
Yep, that's true.
And we do have to talk about it. When I interviewed this person who wanted to remain anonymous, whose name I will not be using, obviously it's a female, as you'll be able to tell by their voice, but I will not be sharing their name. The one thing that they told me was the most important is to maintain the awareness of what happened, for it not to just slip people's minds, like you were just talking about, because that would be the worst. That would be the most terrible thing that could happen to this family, for something as horrific as this to have happened, and for everyone to just move on like nothing mattered. I honestly cannot imagine the horrible pain that the family is in, and I wanted it to bring the latest information for you about what they are facing. And some of the news is good. Some of this update will be good, and some of it is not so good. And this comes from a news interview in which they are talking about the latest progress made into the investigation of who murdered these women and children. Okay. And it's in Spanish, so I'm going to have you play it, and we'll translate it for folks. Okay.
I haven't seen this one yet, so
no, it's very interesting.
Tuvieron que saber que eran mujeres y niños. Han pasado.
They had to know that these were women and children. The person that is speaking in the background is Julian LeBaron, a frequent spokesperson for the LeBaron family. And then the reporter starts saying, a number of days have passed.
2 semanas de la masacre en la Sierra de Sonora y familia.
It's been 2 weeks since the massacres in the mountains of Sonora occurred.
De las víctimas están convencidos que los asesinaron de manera intencional.
And the surviving families are convinced that their family members were killed intentionally.
Nosotros no aceptamos que estas personas se confundieron.
We do not accept that these people made a mistake. Again, that was Julian LeBaron speaking for the family.
Y para mostrar que era muy fácil saber quiénes venían en las camionetas.
And just to show that it was very easy to be able to tell who was inside of the vehicles,
hicieron una especie de simulacro donde ocurrió el primer asesinato.
They did a recreation of events in the location the murders took place.
Pusimos la misma Suburban, es más, está quebrada todavía, ahí la bajamos.
We used the same Suburban. In fact, it's still down there. It's broken down.
Exactamente entre 2-3 pies de donde estaba.
And we put it right where it was, within 2 or 3 feet of the exact location of where that vehicle was.
Y ahí lo ves.
De aquí donde estaban los sicarios, también.
And you can see the vehicle over there. And then the reporter continues, and where the assassins were located,
se puede ver perfectamente el pueblo del que salieron las 3 familias.
Up on this hill, you can see perfectly where the people are leaving the town from which the 3 families left.
Y en otro ángulo, pero a una muy corta distancia,
and from another angle, at a short distance,
está donde le dispararon a Ronita y a sus 4 hijos.
The location where they fired upon Ronita and her 4 children.
De aquí, con el teléfono, le hace suma al teléfono prácticamente.
Y ahí puedes ver que es una mujer.
Oh, I mean, from here, you can, if you're even using a phone to look down there, all you have to do is zoom in the picture on the phone and you would be able to see, says the reporter. And the family member next to him says, yeah, you could see women and children.
Los podían ver perfectamente cada movimiento. Por eso la familia no acepta que el gobierno insista en que fue un error.
You could see perfectly well that the people that were down there were women and children. The assassins would be able to see they were women and children. And that's why the family refuses to accept the government's statements that this could have been a mistake.
Yo creo que desde el inicio ellos han estado afirmando cosas que tal vez no conocen.
I think that he's referring to the Mexican government, have been making affirmations about details that maybe they don't really know about.
O están mintiendo.
Or they're lying.
El gobierno alega que el tanque de la gasolina explotó por un disparo.
The government has asserted that the gas tank in one of the vehicles exploded because of a bullet.
Pero según familiares de las víctimas, surgió un video que muestra a un grupo de sicarios bajo.
But according to family members, a video has emerged that shows a group of assassins that are coming down the hill
Bajando de la loma después de disparar a la camioneta
after having fired upon the vehicle,
y reciben órdenes de quemarla.
Los hombres
and then they receive orders to light it on fire.
iba bajando a la suburban, ya balaseado.
They're coming down toward the Suburban, already shot out. This is a family member being interviewed.
No estaba quemada todavía.
It wasn't on fire already.
Y un hombre dijeron, quémalo.
And a man says, burn it.
Pero pues no eran uno ni dos, pues yo estoy entre 15, 12 a 15.
But it wasn't just one or two. There was between 12 and 15.
A lo mejor todavía arribita.
Or maybe a little bbit more than that.
Exalcalde de Bavispe, es uno de los pocos que vieron el video.
This, missed his first name. They're going to show it in a second here. He was the former mayor of Bavispe. The former mayor of Bavispe says he's one of the only people that has gotten to see this video.
Dice que se lo mostró un mando de la Guardia Nacional.
He said that one of the heads of the National Guard showed it to him.
Asegura que ahí se confirma la orden de quemar el vehículo.
And he assures people that he can confirm that an order was given in the video to burn the vehicle.
El de arriba que está tomando el video dice,
The guy that's up on the hill taking the video,
el último del video, quémala.
at the very end of the video says, burn it.
Miller, abuelo de 4 de los niños calcinados, fue
Kenneth Miller, the grandfather of 4 of the children that were incinerated,
de los primeros que llegaron a la escena. Dice que al pie
was
de
one of the first to arrive on the scene.
la camioneta había casquillos. O sea,
He said that when he arrived at the burned out vehicle, there were gun casings,
que vinieron a rematarlos.
assuring that the assassins came down to finish them off.
Y encontraron cosas personales de Ronita regadas en la carretera.
They also found personal items of Ronita's strewn along the highway.
Un hijo de él también vio el video.
One of his children also saw the video.
Nosotros pensamos hasta que salió este video
We believed until that video came out
que eran 3 o 4.
that it might have been 3 or 4.
Pero ellos contaron unas 12, 14 gentes bien.
But they counted 12, 14 people.
Vestida negro como special.
Well, and then he holds up a sign like he's making a gun sign, like well armed, and really well dressed, all in black, like they were special forces.
El gobierno aún no ha hecho mención sobre este video,
The government of Mexico has made no mention of this video,
pero el FBI ya recibió una copia.
but the FBI in the United States has already received a copy.
Existen muchas incongruencias en la versión de las autoridades, dice la
The family says there are a lot of inconsistencies with the Mexican government's official statements on this investigation.
familia. Y cuando den a conocer este video, se caerá por completo la teoría de que
And when this video is finally shown to the public, the basically the jig will be up in terms of what they've been saying so far,
sus seres queridos los asesinaron por error.
which is that their loved ones were assassinated by mistake.
En la Mora, estado de Sonora, México, Pedro Ultreras, Univision.
In La Mora, Sonora, Mexico, Pedro Ultreras reporting.
Wow.
Okay. What do you think about that, Duke?
Well, that was really scary, and it's like, the family's been told by the government that this was like it was a mistake, and for them to have a video, first thing I'm wondering is that who shot the video, and also how they got it.
Another one of the assassins shot the video.
Okay, and then that they haven't exposed that, even to the family, to keeping the family in the dark and still holding that line that, yeah, it was just a mistake.
Well,
and those details of like
that the ex-mayor of Bavispe is part of the family.
Okay.
There has the same name, Langford, and most of the people that live in these towns,
yeah.
they're all family members.
Okay, but still, they haven't made it public.
No, they haven't made it
Haven't made it
public.
public to the rest of the world, and that the FBI has a copy. It shows that the United States is involved, and it should be out there that this should be shown, because that's a huge difference from 4 people that mistakenly shot these people thinking they were someone else to 15 people dressed like assassins coming down a hill, all the way to the shooting, and also coming up to the car and, firing rounds right at the vehicles right there, meaning they actually got right up to the people, and it's like, that's startling information.
Well, there's I don't want to gloss over this too quickly because there's so much to unpack there, but I think that the key things that we definitely need to talk about is they didn't say these guys looked like cartel members or gangsters, or he said they looked like special forces.
Special forces.
He even switched into English
and said special
and said
forces.
special forces in English. That's mercenaries. Like that's like, Tiger Swan or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's a really big deal. I mean, that's really startling, actually, when I think about it as I was watching and listening to the video, is that they were dressed like special forces. I mean, that's a far difference than claiming they were cartel members or 2 rival cartels were fighting with each other and this family just got caught in a crossfire. They're saying this is special forces that descended down the hill and assassinated them, and all the other evidence they were talking about in this video.
He said they looked like something like they were dressed like special forces. I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, we could speculate a lot of things like we are doing right now. But the video was shown to them by the Mexican National Guard.
Yep.
So that means the Mexican military acquired this video. How did they get it?
Exactly.
Presumably from the guy that was shooting it, right?
Yeah, you think so.
Right? Which means they have people in custody? Do they have people in custody then? Oh, by the way, they mentioned that they've already given a copy of this to the FBI.
Yes.
Even though the Mexican government is being very tight-lipped about it, not saying boo. They're not discussing it. They're not saying anything about it.
Nope.
Well, I should say this. The activist in the family, Julian LeBaron, you may recall, had been involved in an organization for peace and justice for the victims of organized crime, since his family has previously been the victims of murders by organized crime. If you haven't seen that show, I recommend that you go back and watch the complicated history of the LeBaron family in which I talk as objectively as we can about a lot of the history of the LeBaron family in the media in Mexico, even going all the way back to when they first moved there over 100 years ago, and understanding, of course, how all of these stories, many of which people don't really research very carefully or know much about, but, you know, it prejudices what they think now, what they think is happening at this moment. So there's some history there, and part of it has to do with this family's activism and standing up, speaking out against organized crime in Mexico. And the president was asked about marches, protests that will be going toward the White House, presumably to meet with the people heading up these protests. Remember, Julian LeBaron is no longer in that organization. Remember, he left it?
Yeah.
He helped to found it along with a poet whose kid had been murdered by organized crime in Cuernavaca named Javier Sicilia. Remember? Poet dude?
Yep.
And they had previously gone all the way to the White House and made demands of the president, then Calderón. And now they're going to be doing it again. I'm going to talk all about that in a minute. But first, I want you to hear my interview with a member of this family to help you understand their perspective. All these things are being talked about, all these things in the past, in the history, all of the things leading up to this moment having to do with other family members. Remember, this is 3, maybe more towns with thousands and thousands of members of these different families that have been there for generations and generations. So how do they feel about that scrutiny? And how do they feel about what's being said about them and what's going on now? And what do they need? Here is my interview with an anonymous female family member of the victims of the massacre of the LeBaron, Miller, Johnson, and Langford tragedy that occurred in Mexico.
Hello.
Hello, this is Cindy from the radio station on the border of Minnesota and North Dakota. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
So I wanted to talk to you. I'm not going to use your name. I know that you want to be anonymous, but you know, we're up here on the border of Minnesota and North Dakota. I know there are family members here in North Dakota, and there's a lot of questions still open. And of course, this investigation is ongoing. So I wanted to give you a chance to update us with any latest news about the massacres that occurred.
I guess I don't really have any news. The only thing that I really know about that would be news would just be that all of my family members are off the farm. Basically, everybody left La Mora.
Really?
I think there's only. I heard that my Uncle Paul's family was going to stay, and that Amber and Barrick Kaiser were going to stay, and I heard that my Aunt Jenny was going to stay. But then Uncle Paul's daughter said that he was definitely leaving, and so were her brothers and sisters. But I think my Aunt Jenny is still there because she has 2 sons that are still down there.
Okay. Now, just to be
But
clear,
everybody else left.
just to be clear, I heard an interview of another family member. I want to say it was Julian, but I'm not certain. But it was in Spanish, and they were explaining that normally the men have businesses and jobs in the U.S., and they come and they work, and they leave their families behind. But now they don't feel comfortable doing that, and that's why everyone is leaving. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Not just that, but nobody wants to go, like, La Mora was, it was always a safe place, and it was peaceful, and it was just quiet, and it was just family. It was like literally just a small town of family only.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody that wasn't related to you lived there. And now, there's probably going to be like a permanent, there's like soldiers everywhere. There's no privacy anymore. And I just think that that's not what my family lived in La Mora for. So and I don't think it's ever going to be the same. And a lot of them don't think it's ever going to be the same.
Can you speak at all about the newest discovery of the video that I'm assuming your relative, the ex-mayor of Avispe, was shown by a member of the Mexican National Guard, which showed a group of men, 12 to 15 men, that came down from the hill after shooting at Ronita's car?
I don't believe that I have seen that video.
Well, according to the latest report of the ex-mayor of Avispe, by the last name of Langford, he said that he's the only one that's seen it. And maybe, I believe, Kenny said that one of his children had seen the video as well. It was Adam Langsford, ex-mayor of Avispa, that said he saw the video. It was shown to him by a member of the National Guard, and that this video showed 12 to 15 men that came down from the hill, from that lookout point that the family believes they were shooting from, one of the places they were shooting from. And they went down to the vehicle after shooting it out, and someone gave the order to light the vehicle on fire, and it can be heard on the video. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. Like I said, I don't have very much news. I just, the only news that I did have was in the beginning when it was happening, and that was just as my sister was updating me, and pretty much after everything happened, the only thing I really cared about was just their safety and making sure that they all got out of there and we're going to be okay. Mostly my sister, she was down there. And her family are in Utah right now in a house, so they're safe. So I'm just trying to kind of like put it all behind me. I'm trying not to just obsess over watching videos.
No, I
get too upset.
I'm sure. But I wonder what your take is, knowing that this video exists. One of the family members that was being interviewed said, I believe it was Kenny, said that the men in that video looked like they were special forces. He even said it in English. He switched into English when talking about how the men were dressed and said they looked like they were special forces. Does that in any way change how you view this massacre, or, who the possible culprits are?
Well, not really, I suppose, because we all know that, a lot of the cartel members are part of the government. There's a lot of soldiers that are cartel members, and it just depends on what side of the border you live on, who's on your side.
Now, I also understood from that interview that a copy of this video has been turned over to the FBI in the United States. I know that members of your family have requested assistance from the FBI to investigate this case, as well as from the U.S. government. First, I wanted to ask you, what, if any, ongoing assistance are they providing? And why do you feel you need the U.S.'s intervention in an investigation taking place in Mexico?
Well, the family is a lot of people all around have opened up their homes. They have like rentals that they had available, and they've offered them to different family members. Paid their rent for 6 months, bought groceries for them, fed them, bought household items for them. Just really stocked them up with all the camping equipment and all the bedding and things that they could possibly need. So people are just really reaching out to all of my family members and really helping them, just find a place and try to get settled for a little bit, gather their thoughts, and figure out exactly where they want to end up. Mm-hmm. As far as the investigation goes, I don't really know how I feel about the United States going in and doing an investigation in Mexico. But it seems to me like all the help that they can get would probably be not a bad thing.
Well,
Just
there's two things happening. There's the investigation into this horrific massacre that occurred to your family, which has brought international attention to the violence in Mexico. And then there's the discussion of how to deal with that violence in Mexico. And members of your family, like Julian, have taken very prominent roles as activists addressing this ongoing problem of extreme violence, cartel violence in Mexico. I know that before Julian became very active, there were another set of deaths that occurred at the hands of, narco-connected violence with your family, and that the response of Julian and others of your family members was to stand up publicly against this kind of violence. In an interview that Julian gave many years ago, speaking about the response of Mexico's president at the time, Calderón, he said that he was not pleased with the response the Mexican government had given in its war on crime. He said that the response was generating more death and more violence than it was fixing it. What is the LeBaron family position today?
I'm really not sure. I'm just related to the Langfords. There's a few LeBarons that are married in. The experience that I have in LeBaron is pretty much just as a teenager and a kid. Mm-hmm. I didn't really fully understand all the...
Uh-oh. Oh, I lost you there for a second. Are you there?
Sorry, I'm home now and I'm moving around.
Okay, that's okay. Well, I don't mean to put, all of the pressure for you to answer for every member of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that belong to your families. But I did want to get your perspective because there's a larger conversation happening about whether or not cartels should be classified as terrorist groups and what kind of response should be given to the extreme violence occurring in Mexico. And people are looking to members of your family because you've recently been affected most by this violence to see what you want as victims of this recent violence.
I think definitely the cartel members should be classified as terrorists. I mean, they're actively destroying their own country.
Sure. And
they're destroying people's lives, people that shouldn't have anything to do with any kind of violence, people that just, they believe in God and they just want to raise their family in a peaceful and loving environment that's safe And these people just come in and they just, bomb on their lives and up these kids that are out here in the States now. They've never been out here. They've never lived in a place where, like in La Mora, you're a little kid and you go outside to play and you can build like mud pies and, run around, go check out the river, look at the animals, go hunt rocks, just do whatever you want and you feel safe. And your mom feels safe and comfortable knowing that you're safe and everyone around you is someone that you know. So if you are thirsty or you're hungry or you're tired or you get hurt, you just go walk into a house and, it's your auntie or your uncle there to help you. And if you need your mom, then they'll give you a quad ride home or whatever. They'll patch you up. And like out here in the States, like just having to adjust to how different life is out here because nobody wants to help people out here. It's like if your kid gets out and goes and runs down the street, you got neighbors calling the cops on you, being like, oh, your kids are being neglected, and so it's a totally different environment, and that's not the worst of it, but
well, I'd like to
changed everybody's lives.
I'd like to know more about that because I don't think Americans, have a sense of what life was like in La Mora, and how this is an additional trauma for all of you, all of the families, for all the surviving families. Uh-oh.
Lost you there for a second, but I think we're reconnecting.
Yep, we're here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you manage to hear what I was saying about? I would like to hear more about what your life was like in La Mora because I don't think people here in America realize how having to move your families and especially the children is a form of re-traumatization for all of you, kind of a shock.
Yeah, it's a total culture shock going from La Mora to living out in the States. When I was a kid, like I said, we went running around. There's horses, there's cows. We all did our chores. Everybody was related to everybody, so it's you just felt really safe. You had really good friends. Always felt loved and supported, and I never remember ever worrying about anything.
Do you feel like
I just remember like going over to my Aunt Amelia's house on Sundays while they played the piano and we sang hymns and we said family prayer at night.
Do you think that the family will have a hard time readjusting? Is this permanent?
I think maybe some of the kids could have. For most people, yes, this is permanent. At least as we can see it now. If something is done and by some miracle, things can go back to the way that they were, this issue with the cartel kind of just becomes resolved, definitely people will go home.
What will happen to all of your lives were there, your businesses were there, your homes were there?
I have no idea. What I'm hoping for is I know that like San Miguel and Bavispe, a lot of the people that live there in those old communities have relied on my family for years for work and income. And, their wives are employed as, housekeepers,
mm-hmm.
and they help take care of kids, and, their men are helping take care of the pecan orchards and the pomegranate orchards and the cows, and you know, the farm chore type stuff, building different projects and things.
How many thousands of people beyond your family members do you think are going to be affected by all of this?
Well, I did watch a video where people were saying that they were worried that if all of my family had left, that the communities there would just fall apart and become ghost towns because there wouldn't be anything left for them to be able to live on.
Wow.
I'm hoping that since a lot of the people that have been working for my family have been with them for a really long time, and I'm hoping that they will be able to continue employing them, you know, to kind of just like, I'm thinking like, well, they've been working out on the farm and maintaining all this stuff for all this time. Why can't they just keep it up? You know, like, we're all gone and we're not there. And no, it's not really safe for anybody in Mexico right now, but right now in La Mora, they have like tons of soldiers, you know, all up and down the roads, all the way to the borders. So I imagine it's safe enough if the workers or the people of San Miguel and Bispe that work for my family could just go out there and keep doing what they know how to do, you know, and just maintain everything.
But it sounds like
maybe one day we'll be able to go back.
It sounds like you're really torn in half, and you have a lot of concerns about what happens on the Mexico side, even though your family has to come to the States to feel safe.
Well, I grew up there. You know, I was raised there, and I know that as a kid and growing up, you know, there were a lot of, you know, I never learned how to speak Spanish. Like, I can go to the store and I can, you know, get all the things that I need food wise, and I can ask how much something is and know all my numbers, my alphabet and things, but like, I can't speak fluent Spanish at all. And just the amount of kindness and love that was shown to me by the Mexican people down there growing up, just, it's stuck with me my whole life. And I have a very big place in my heart for Mexico. I always want to go home and go visit. I haven't been able to in a very long time. And I'm really sad because I'm not sure if I ever will get to go down there again.
What is your wish for Mexico? How would you like this to all be resolved?
I guess I just hope that the people can really just, you know, take a stand for themselves, because I feel like, you know, if every single person in Mexico is on the same page and every single person wants the cartel out of there and everybody stands together, something's got to budge. I hope that Mexico can really find a way to get the evil out of the government and everybody can just work together to get the cartel out of there so that Mexico can be safe. I mean, the whole thing with the cartel is all just about money, right? And like, that's why the government is not doing everything that they can to put a stop to it, because, you know, if they put a stop to it, then that's money out of their pockets. And,
right.
you know, I've heard people say that, like, oh, they're using the excuse that Mexico will fall apart with all the money that the drug cartels are bringing in. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, that is some because I'm like, people all the time, I hear all the time, you know, I see on Facebook and social medias all the time, people are like, oh, we get to go to vacation, you know, in Mexico, and we're going to go and we're going to stay in this resort and we're going to go see the ocean, we're going to go to Cancun, you know. And so, like, Mexico has like so many tourists.
Yeah.
So many. And I just feel like how can a country just go completely broke and not be able to function when there's so much money coming in from people all over the world that want to visit Mexico? I mean, it's got history like none other. It's got the most beautiful architectural just wonders. There's like this canyon that's near La Mora that we go and visit, and you walk through and it's just this beautiful sandstone, and it's got a natural spring that runs through it. Certain times of the year there's a waterfall that comes down through, like you walk back into the way back, and there's like this big circular like cave, and it's got a ceiling, and there's just a hole up in the ceiling, and this waterfall at certain points of the year just pours through this hole in the ceiling.
Wow.
And there's little glow bugs that live in the moss in there and stuff, and it's just so beautiful. And I know Mexico is just full of gorgeous places like that, and it would just be a total shame to have, to not be able to share. Like, if Mexico couldn't share its treasures with the world, I mean, it would just be a complete shame.
Yeah, you're right. I know that the corruption in the Mexican government, the tardy response to this horrific crime against your family, the misinformation being put out, at least, from the perspective of spokespeople for your family, from the government about this investigation, has been rampant. I know that members of your family have expressed a lack of faith in the investigative process. Are you going to continue to fight for justice for your family in Mexico? And what does that look like?
Absolutely. And I'm not really sure what that's going to look like for me. I mean, I feel like the only thing that I can really do is just kind of help spread the word, and I want to just try to bring awareness of what's really going on. And so that, because there's a lot of people that are saying things about the community of La Mora, and they're saying that, like, oh, they're doing like bad stuff down there, and they have all these skewed views of polygamy, and so they're trying to say that like that's the kind of stuff that my family's doing, and it's not. And they're just basically trying to make any excuses that they can to justify what happened, and to not feel, I guess, not to be upset by it. Mm-hmm. Just kind of cushion it, sugarcoat it, whatever. I don't know how to express what I mean about that, but
There's justification, you mean?
Yeah, I think they're just trying to like justify it in some stupid way.
But you're part of, there's 2 or 3 different communities or more that have members of your family, and we're talking about thousands and thousands of people, correct? Mm-hmm. And members of your families have been there for generations.
Yes.
Like entire communities. So
like, and my family go back so far. I mean, even my family that's married into the Langford family, like my grandma's dad was born. There's like a restaurant on Main Street, and it's like it's beautiful 2-story home, and it's been remodeled into a restaurant. And you like go, I can't remember what it's called. You like go in, and it's like all these different rooms. Like, it's pretty much original. Mm-hmm. They've souped up the kitchen a little bit, changed a few things, but most of it's all original. Mm-hmm. And you can just rent out individual rooms. So, like, my family has been there, like, on both sides of my family for a long time. Like, we originated from there. I don't know how long the Langfords have been there, but I think my grandma married my grandpa, and I think he was born and raised in Mexico. So it just goes back, like, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 generations now, almost 6, because some of us kids have kids. You know?
So when people in Mexico, people are talking about the history of your family and the religion or the polygamy or these other things, what is your response to that? How does that make you feel?
I think that people just don't understand the amount of just pure, unconditional love that surrounds everyone in my family. And it makes me really sad. And I'll be honest, it actually makes me really angry when I read things, you know, where people post comments on some of the posts that I've shared. Some of the things that people say, I just get so angry, and I just wish I could slap them, you know? like, you don't even know these people, and you're just passing judgment on them.
Well, many questions.
I just wish more people would actually hear more about how my family, you know, really is, so that all of those judgments and those assumptions that people are making, you know, can just be cut out of the equation completely, so that they can just see that these are just innocent, beautiful families that are suffering.
Well, I'm glad
because of the cartel.
I'm glad that you had an opportunity to share your perspective with us and with my audience, so that they hear from your family how this is all affecting you. And I would love it if in the future we could get another update from you, hopefully with news about how the family is settling in here in the U.S. and what's going on with the investigation.
Sure. I'll try to do some research on how the investigation is going. I'm not really sure. Like you said, you know, there's a lot of false information out there. And so I'm not really even sure where to get good information.
I would love to get an update on that latest video that members of your family have been talking about in the media, because, you know, it's rather explosive that, you know, the government of Mexico's president and investigators have been making allusions to the possibility that this was some kind of a mistake, that it was a, you know, crossfire between 2 organized crime groups, and this video would definitely blow apart that whole theory.
Well, I can tell you that not a single person in my family believes that it was just coincidence or that it was just an accident.
Right, and this video seems to prove that.
Well, would you do me a favor? If you get more information before I get more information, would you please keep me in the loop? Could you?
Oh, certainly.
Maybe, yeah, that would just be amazing.
In fact, I'm going to go ahead and send you the information that I was just talking about, so you can take a look at it, okay?
Okay, that would be great.
And I really, really appreciate your time. I send condolences to you and your family members, and I really appreciate you sharing your experience and what you want people in the community here in the United States to know? Is there anything else you want people to know on what's happening or how they can support your family?
I think the best way that everyone could support my family is just share as much as they can. Awareness is really what's going to help bring justice to the lives that were lost and the people that are going to suffer. All of the kids that lost their mom and the husbands that lost their wives. I know there's GoFundMe pages going around trying to collect money for the people that have had to leave so that they can, pay rent and get things that they need and have travel fare and all that sort of thing. But I think the biggest thing that can really help everyone, not just my family, but the people of Mexico as well, is to just really bring awareness, because we have to motivate people to want to make a change.
Sure. Exactly.
And I feel like the more people that are informed and support finding a solution to this problem, the more people of Mexico are going to feel supported and empowered, and the more they are going to hopefully, want to stand up for themselves and be the change that everybody needs. And I want to thank you, because you're one of the people making a difference out there. You're out there reporting on all of these things, and you're trying to spread the truth and bring awareness, and that is just, there aren't words to describe how amazing that is.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for talking to me. Again, I appreciate your time, and I'll send you the links that we discussed. Hopefully we can get the word out and make a difference.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cindy,
All right.
for your time as well.
All right. Take care. And if you want to contribute to the family's fundraiser, I don't know if you heard her mention that the family members are all being relocated. Many of the people that are leaving the town, or La Mora and other places nearby that they consider to be dangerous, are leaving to come and stay at other people's homes and start up, lives. And so they're having to raise rent for folks to start them off.
Yeah. So
that they can get into a place in the U.S. They have to get clothes and household items and, everything they need basically to set up homes for all of these displaced families. If you want to contribute, you can go to the GoFundMe for the family. I've shared a link in the comments of the show for the Langford Miller Johnson family tragedy. They're hoping to raise enough money so that they can relocate hundreds of people.
Wow.
Their goal is 300,000. They've raised around 189 of that so far. And this is really going to have a big impact on that community. As she mentioned, they were afraid that some of these places could turn into ghost towns. I did find that news report in which they actually talked about the fact that the town is empty. Yeah. There's like 25 families that live there, and only 7 of them are left.
Wow.
You see that? It's crazy. So imagine that these particular families established their communities out in the middle of a desert.
Yeah.
They populated an unpopulated area, and they made it prosperous, and they made it a community of all their own family members. So then if they all leave, they're the ones that started the businesses. They're the ones that started the, the orchards and all of that stuff. What happens when they leave? Right? Think about.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they were all leaving town and leaving the town empty, and that people that worked there and are losing their jobs. Their businesses are going to have to close. There's not going to be anyone bringing in supplies because there's no people there anymore. It's like I didn't realize that was happening, because once again the news cycle quit on this like after a day or so, and there's been little follow up, except what we're doing tonight is some really really incredible information to understand this even better. But I didn't realize that their town had basically emptied out. And
they mentioned that they had people that had been with their families for a long time working for them. Mm-hmm. They're, housekeepers or groundskeepers or childcare assistants, et cetera, working on the farms, maintaining the farms. I mean, this is a community that's based around these families. So, of course, if they leave, that's going to mean a lot of things goes with them.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to share an article about the way in which the president of Mexico has offended the LeBaron family, because he won't change his rhetoric. He won't change his tune on how to deal with organized crime. In this headline, you see that the LeBaron family is sick of hearing the president punt on the issue of security for Mexico. And he says that he is not investing. This family member that was quoted says the president's not investing in national security. And, that's one of the many issues surrounding the political discourse on this topic. In this second screen capture from that same article, which I will share with you here in the comments of the show so you can check it out for yourself. It is in Spanish, but it's you can Google that, right?
Yeah. Google Translate.
Yeah, just Google Translate that, and then boom. And excuse me. In this, it says that Adrian LeBaron was quoted as saying that it's really hard to live your life hearing the same rhetoric from the president, the same rhetoric amidst all this pain and tragedy. Mm-hmm. Is offensive.
Yeah.
And he said that with regard to national security, the president of Mexico is basically failing, saying that the Mexican president isn't investing in security. He said it is just a generalized discourse. He wants to hand out money to I don't know who, and we all have the right to protest. And he says this as the family is going to go in a caravan in the United States all the way to the White House.
Wow.
This is days before they're heading out in a caravan, the whole family.
Going to the White House.
Yes.
Wow.
Going to Washington, D.C. to ask the president to help them.
Wow.
The president of the United States. So, and they were also referring to the future protest marches by activist and poet Javier Sicilia, whose son was murdered by organized crime way back when, that had previously marched with the LeBaron brother, Julian. And he's going to be organizing marches to go to the National Palace in Mexico.
Okay.
To protest the president of Mexico, to have him change his strategy to combat insecurity and violence in Mexico. To which, this family member, Adrian LeBaron, addressed that they're not going in that protest. They're not in that particular one going to Mexico City's president.
Yep.
He said, we want to know how much he's going to invest in security. Without security, there is no progress. And Mexico's president, López Obrador, after being questioned on the fact that folks are going to be coming protesting at your door, he said, imagine if I hung around here waiting for this conservative Fifi press. Our adversaries, giving them airs, giving it wings.
Yeah.
Me, make it the big brouhaha for the conservatives. The great meeting. Added the president during his morning press conference at the capital of the country.
Wow.
Now, if you were wondering what Fifi means, I'm going to give you the definition of Fifi so you can see for yourself what it means.
Right.
There's an alternative to this definition, by the way, which says that it is a fake female body part.
Oh.
Okay? But I'm going to use this other definition instead, in which the word refers to sissy.
Okay.
Or fussy.
Oh.
But it really has to do with this, like, it's a pejorative term. It is, you're sappy, you're sissy. But basically he's saying the sissy conservative press.
Yeah. Wow. Huh.
Fifi. But it can also mean, like, fussy, like, persnickety.
Yeah.
Fickle, bourgeoisie, bougie.
Well, it is definitely being insensitive, Whatever the definition he was intending to use with Fifi, it was showing no urgency, or concern that should be dealt with right away.
People are going to go protest on his steps.
And
I won't be here.
Expect it. Yeah, I won't hang around and wait.
He said maybe the dude from Human Rights can meet them. It was so let them eat cake of AMLO.
Yeah.
The way he handled that, and it's kind of surprising because you would think he would be just a tiny bit more concerned about the effect, the optics in the United States and in Mexico of this massacre of children and women. I mean, this is a president that, just like presidents before him, did not like criticism, especially regarding organized crime and corruption in Mexico. And just like past President Calderón, who had to meet up with Julian LeBaron and Javier Sicilia, the poet activist turned activist, dreaded any kind of having to confront this in the media type of a meeting. And he called the Sicilia guy his worst nightmare, or at least the headlines in Mexico at the time called the meeting the president's worst PR nightmare.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that past presidents were thrilled at the idea of dealing with organized crime or addressing it with regard to even these same particular people, the LeBaron family or Javier Sicilia. But what is incredibly interesting is the response that people, excuse me, that people are having to, people's angry request for action, whether it's marching or protests, or as the LeBaron family members are doing now, leaving the country, voting with their feet and going, you know what, we're taking our business, we're taking all of these things, and we're leaving. We don't have a choice because the president is not giving us any choice. At least that's what I heard in the interview, right?
Okay.
It didn't sound like, they said I said, is this a permanent decision? And she said, yeah.
Wow.
And that's going to be really catastrophic economically for that region and for those towns. Mm-hmm. Adrian LeBaron responded to the comments of the president of Mexico saying, López Obrador believes in Santa Claus. He thinks that he can keep handing out money and that this problem of security is just going to stop being a problem. But progress comes from a secure country, and Mexico is not a secure country. That's what he had to say.
Wow.
You heard in the interview that I updated her with the news that, there was a video that showed some new information, and that National Guardsmen from Mexico had presented this video to ex-mayor of Avispe.
That's right.
Langford. And you also found out through my report today that the FBI has received a copy of said video and that they're involved. What you should also know is that they've been in Mexico alongside Mexican authorities investigating. But what you should also know is that they were allowed to enter with regard to the investigation of the murders, but they were not allowed to enter to bring their weapons. They were not allowed to bring their weapons in. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that puts you at a disadvantage in terms of security. But I don't know what that means in terms of how much open cooperation and equal footing each party has in investigating this.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you think?
Well, it's tough.
What do you make of that? The fact that they're like, yeah, you can be here, but
no weapons.
Guns.
No guns. Again, in an area where people have just been shot, where there are people running around with lots of weapons, and you want to talk about security and negotiate a better, security culture, but leave your weapons out. It's like a little bit vulnerable because it's really, it's really dangerous right now. I think that doing everything without weapons would, if you got everyone to agree, would be the best way to have a summit and really have that. But how realistic would it be that everybody would participate with that?
It's absolutely not.
You're probably putting yourself in more danger. So yeah, it's a tough one. In my idealistic world, it would be no weapons. Strip people of all their weapons and have a safe spot for them to talk and meet and have a summit. And
one of the things that really upsets the family is that up until the issue and the publishing of this article, which just came out in the last day or so, the Secretary of Security and Protection for Citizens under the president, Alfonso Durazo, was, for the whole country, was still saying in the morning press conference that the gas tank in the vehicle that was lit on fire, and as we now learned, exploded.
Yeah.
And it exploded because somebody shot a bullet at it.
A bullet, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which, is absolutely an act of terrorism, according to Adrian LeBaron. And he does not feel that they're getting the justice that they deserve. He told reporters that when he met with the FBI to give his report, that they told him that they weren't going to have any response for him for 2-3 weeks or maybe a month.
Wow.
Because they just came over to help with logistics in this investigation. They came in without any weapons. They didn't allow them to bring them in. So I don't expect to receive much from them.
Yeah.
That's what this family member, Adrian LeBaron, has stated. They must feel so abandoned,
Yeah.
And then, if you could put up this next slide, the priest, Alejandro Solalinde, we're on article AMLO offends LeBaron 3.
Okay.
Alejandro Solalinde, the priest that I told you, was involved with the caravans. The one I recently talked about, who has been coined as one of the lead defenders of human rights with regards to immigration, migration, and the caravans. Alejandro Solalinde, which I told you was recently on the outs for some unknown reason with the border angels. And some of his colleagues in clergy, like Sister Sister Letty. I'm forgetting her name right now.
Yeah.
But you saw that they were posting and tagging him with very antagonistic comments about this pastor. And now, once again, his name has come into the fray. He, in response to learning that the activist and poet Javier Sicilia would be marching to confront his friend Andrés Manuel López Obrador in the White House equivalent in Mexico,
Yep.
tweeted that Javier Sicilia is an excellent poet, but a horrible politician. And his movement with capital M, they're referring to the nonprofit organization started for the victims of cartel crime in Mexico. His movement, he abandoned his movement during difficult times. Sadly, it's very sad. It is also very sad that he is opposing the regime that is fighting for peace as fruits of justice. This time, I will not march alongside him.
Oh.
So he tweeted to say, he's throwing some shade there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a great poet, a horrible politician, and I'm also sorry that he abandoned his own organization, the movement for whatever. Mm-hmm. And remember, this is a group started by him and Javier LeBaron. This is a picture of both of them together from that time when they started that group. Julian LeBaron. Here, I get Julian and Javier mixed up because they both start with J's. Mm-hmm. But they were marching all over, and they brought a lot of awareness and also embarrassed the administration then and probably will again now. Mm-hmm. And in his announcement that he would be protesting, Javier Sicilia, the poet, now apparently going this alone, published an open letter to the president of Mexico, a scathing letter in which he said about the president and the many promises he made in Mexico to the Mexican people. A year ago, You said you would govern over all Mexicans and that together we would make history. A year ago, you said that your fundamental agenda for this nation was peaceful justice and national security. That's why, a year ago, you signed an IOU to the nation to return to us what the criminals and the state had stolen from us. Now, after a year, with more than 30,000 deaths added to all the hundreds of thousands of murdered and kidnapped people under previous administrations, and with the most recent massacre of the LeBaron family, that promissory note has been returned to us, stamped insufficient funds. Ouch.
Oh, God.
Psst. Get some burn ointment.
No kidding.
Dang. Well, as a poet, he can write a nasty letter.
Oh, yeah.
Can he?
Nasty Graham.
Ouch. Insufficient funds.
Yep. Rejected.
Yeah, you made a promissory. Gave us a promissory note.
Yep. And it bounced. The check is bounced.
The check is bounced. Dang. Woo. Folks, this fight and this search for justice for the family has just started up. And the last part of this article, which is very interesting in terms of what is next, they talk about how they're going to be going from Kansas City all the way to Washington, D.C. in a massive caravan of family members. And what they're going to do is that they want the world to know that, he says, my interest is just making sure that the world knows that we are in this cause. We're fighting for this cause. There is nothing specific yet in terms of planning how they're going to do this. But he said, as the father of Ronita, my daughter was murdered, and I want Donald Trump to know that we will keep on fighting. That's a quote from Adrian LeBaron to the Daily of Juarez. So, this is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What this family is going through, and I don't know. I mean, that quote of the president kind of being like, "I won't be waiting around for their beepy conservative blah blah." I was like, that was super harsh. And I don't know if he did the right thing, just because the optics of what this is, the murder of women and children under the most horrific circumstances, it can't be a smart move for the president of Mexico to be reacting in this way.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But that's just me, a Mexican crossing lines. And again, I'd like to thank the family member that gave me and send our condolences to the family at large. But I want to thank the family member that gave me the interview. I know that during these horribly difficult times, the last thing that people, want to be doing is pouring their soul out to the media.
Exactly.
So for that, I am deeply thankful for her openness and, really giving people a chance to hear from your family.
Yep.
And we will keep bringing more updates on what is going on in Mexico and with regard to this investigation here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Don't forget to go and check out our latest sponsor.
That's right. Make my life great again. PalomaForTrump.com. Paloma 4 Trump.com.
Thank you, folks, and have a great day.